Welcome to the Thursday Primetime News edition. Thanks for joining us. As always, it's an absolute pleasure being in your company. I'm Selima Shimwefeleni Masipa. We commence tonight's bulletin from the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York, the United States, where Head of State Dr. Hage Geingob acknowledged SWAPO Party Vice President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah as Namibia's next possible first female president. The head of state lauded Namibia's efforts to close the gender gap in his address on Wednesday. Let's now listen to a portion of the president's address.
Geingob said advocating for gender equality is not only a matter of fairness, however, it is an essential step towards unlocking innovation, diversity, and social cohesion, noting that the country has 44% female representation in parliament, including females in the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister positions, and 2/3 of the key banking institutions are headed by women.
I always say that inclusivity spells harmony, and exclusivity spells conflict. The continued advocacy for gender equality is a core in our collective journey towards a just and inclusive world. Therefore, advocating for gender equality is not only a matter of fairness, it is an essential step towards unlocking innovation, diversity, and social cohesion. We are indeed proud to be ranked by the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report of 2023 as number eight country in the world for the efforts to close the gender gap.
Namibia, he said, believes in promoting inclusive and effective governance that ensures youth integration into decision-making structures to play their part in a future they have helped to shape. Reporting for Primetime News, Ishmael Mukvonda.
Moving on back home, Namibia National Association of the Deaf Executive Director, Linekela Nanyeni, highlighted the challenges the hearing-impaired community encounter in assessing basic services throughout the country owing to communication barriers. Nanyeni noted this during a sensitization gathering earlier in the capital. At the same event, the association's vice chairperson, Ushona Peter, underscored the importance of recognizing sign language as a national language, which he noted will enable the hearing-impaired community participate in the democratic process. Let's have a listen.
So once sign language is recognized, then individuals in the community of the deaf will be able to actually get employment easily, because an employer will be able to accommodate our needs when they are employing us, because sign language has been recognized by government. They can even quickly employ an interpreter when need arises. It also enhances our communication with the wider community, and give us all other legal rights, and reduce the dependency on social welfare. So once sign language is recognized, then it can enhance the social inclusion of deaf individuals. We won't feel isolated and left out as we are now, and also can improve mental health and overall well-being within the deaf community.
I am grateful to receive this petition on their behalf. I am mandated by Rule 97 of the Standing Rules and Orders of National Assembly to receive the petitions and to hand over to the Speaker.
Moving on, Landless People's Movement Member of Parliament and Chief Whip Henny Sept has called for the review of the Namibian Mining Act, saying it currently lacks an appropriate definition and allows exclusive prospecting license owners to demand exclusivity. Sept, in a motion moved in Parliament on Wednesday, specifically expressed concern about the plight of some small-scale miners in the Erongo region who, although contribute significantly to the country's GDP, are given very little attention. More insights from this report.
Despite nearly a century of small-scale mining operations in Namibia, this subsector has persisted in providing employment opportunities, particularly in the extraction of semi-precious stones, Sept expressed. He further indicated that in spite of the presence of a niche domestic market, the absence of formalization and organized structures within the small-scale mining sector has hindered its growth prospects, placing it at a lower tier of the economic hierarchy.
The World Bank, for instance, categorizes all mining activities as small-scale if they involve the production of approximately 15,000 metric tons of unprocessed material annually. However, this definition overlooks the social, technical, and financial attributes of the operators. Small-scale mining in Namibia remains a relatively underexplored and insufficiently researched area. There is a notable scarcity of research dedicated to comprehending the activities of small-scale miners.
Among the primary economic sectors, mining has emerged as the foremost contributor to the nation's GDP and plays a pivotal role in poverty alleviation efforts, he said. This situation extends to the small-scale miners operating within the Erongo region, where an estimated population of nearly 10,000 small-scale miners are engaged in various mining activities, and as observed elsewhere on the continent, small-scale miners in this region face substantial challenges in sustaining a decent livelihood, he also stressed. Reporting for Primetime News, Ishmael Mukvonda.
Switching our attention to the Oshodanjupa region, where Otjiwarongo Mayor Gottlieb Shivute on Wednesday promised to launch an in-depth investigation into allegations leveled against his council officials for reportedly conducting job interviews for cleaner positions on Tuesday night. Shivute, upon inquiry on Wednesday, told the Namibia Press Agency that he received complaints that 41 candidates were interviewed for 17 vacant cleaner positions at the municipality. More from this report compiled by Mulisa Simiasa.
When asked whether it is normal practice for the municipality to conduct job interviews at night, Shivute said he is not aware of such practice. On her part, the municipality's human resources manager, Rachel Engelbrecht, who chaired the interviews, said the interview committee recommended that the interviews be done at night because there was such a large amount of candidates. She said the 41 candidates attended the interviews held at the Paris Sports Stadium Hall, and there was nothing sinister about the practice. Engelbrecht further stated that candidates struggled to answer questions and that contributed to the lengthy interview process, which went far beyond the estimated time of 2 hours allocated to 10 candidates. Reporting for Primetime News, Ishmael Mukvonda.
Stay tuned for the business segment. Welcome to the Primetime Biz segment, your hub for all things business and economics. As a follow-through to last night's Primetime Biz segment, the Empowering Youth in Agriculture conference dominates the segment. The one-day conference, held under the theme Unlocking the Potential of the Next Generation, saw local and regional agripreneurs as well as industry pace-setters share best practices with youth within the agro sector, as well as strategies aimed at harnessing the full potential of the sector. Our executive producer George Hendricks and Primetime Biz anchor Michael Madimba attended the conference and produced this insert.
Your slides spoke about the green economy, putting farming first. And you also shared about sustainability and safeguarding the environment. And world leaders are now gathered in New York discussing climate change, green energy, green transition, and so on and so forth. And we believe that sustainability is a crucial aspect of modern agriculture. In your view, Andile, how can agripreneurs incorporate sustainable and environmentally friendly practices in their businesses?
Okay, so there are various ways that one can look at regarding sustainable agriculture. I think the biggest one with regenerative agriculture is obviously looking at things like the soils being one of the most important resources on your farm, by far. We are currently having a lot of issues especially in South Africa, in terms of things like runoff, where you have soil being washed away because of not having a proper land use plan for waterways, for example. Also over the use of synthetic fertilizers, for example, and obviously just pumping nitrogen into the soils consistently, the soils becoming acidic, and that kind of those issues. So there is an element of having to look after your soils. You need to do the regenerative stuff at some point. You've got to take some unlock from your production and just spend the time to look at how you can regenerate good qualities within your soils. So if it means you have to rest fields, for example, cover crops to replenish nutrients that may have been taken out of the soil, you've got to invest in that. So it may not yield, say, an income from a profit perspective, but in the long run, you are most likely going to protect the possibility of being able to produce well on that particular soil.
So, which means going eco-friendly and farming sustainably can also have some sort of a disadvantage when it comes to production.
In a way, yes. I think that's the biggest issue is a lot of people shy away from moving away from monocropping, for example, because we're constantly chasing yields, we're constantly chasing income. So the minute you have to stop doing what you would conventionally do to bring in income, it kind of then makes it undesirable to focusing on now regenerating your resources, the natural resources that you have access to.
Right. All right. My next one is for Colin. In his introductory remarks, Lazarus Shini spoke of innovation. He also spoke of embracing new technology, adding that it's a cornerstone of modern agriculture. And you also shared extensively on cloning in agriculture and tracking livestock. So my question is, how do you see the role of technology and digital innovation shaping the future of agriculture, whether it's in Namibia or in Sub-Saharan Africa?
We need to use the tools that are available to us, and now we have more tools that can be even more useful to us. So I think, we can't fall behind. The landscape is evolving rapidly, more rapidly than it's ever evolved, and it will just continue to increase in pace. So if we're already behind, we need to really catch up. We need to start implementing these tools. And they don't have to be expensive. I didn't focus on very high-tech, very expensive technologies like using lasers to do weed control, something like that. We have these tools readily available at our fingertips, and maybe I'm being cynical, but I don't think Namibians are using them enough at the moment. So we need to encourage that. It's probably also has to come into the curriculums, that we start introducing these technologies in our diplomas, in our training courses, in our extension services. we can't really get these tools out there if no one knows about them. So I think we really need to do a lot more to engage and to emphasize how important using technology is. But at the end of the day, every farmer must choose which technology actually suits him best and suits the scenario best. If you're a livestock farmer in the south, then you may not find bush to feed very interesting or useful. But if you're a livestock farmer in this north central area, then bush to feed might become very useful for you. So I can't say, exactly you do that. But the more knowledge we have of technology, the more information we have, the better decisions we can make on which technologies suit us and which don't.
So awareness is an issue when it comes to tech tools and techniques. Colin, I'd like to get your perspective on this one, the role of technology and innovation in farming.
I would love to start off this way. I think what helped me in my personal life is putting things in context. And once you contextualize things, it makes it easier for you to understand and to do better. What am I saying by putting things in context? We are in Nigeria. I'm hailing from Sept region. And with that said, farming has been there. Farming is going to be part of us. And once we understand the way farming has been, that means like my mother, my father, my uncles, they all have been farming, whether it's with cows, crops, and whatnot. So once I understood the context where we are coming from, then it helped me also to say why they were farming. They were farming to feed their family immediately, and that's it. However, they also have experienced and challenges in doing so. And as we continue now, the generation that is coming, as we are saying, it's the youth that needs to take over. The understanding again of that context is that now is the paradigm shift from farming to feed my family, for example, immediately, to also now farming to make sure that I feed my family, but also for commercial purposes. Now, how will that happen? Is that back then, perhaps my parents used to wait for 6-7 months for them to be able to harvest. But then in our context, if you want to do commercial, for example, then you probably have to wait 4 months, like the production of our butternut will wait probably approximately 4 months. But in the 5th month, they are almost ready. So when you start now understanding that context, and then you proceed now to say, okay, if I'm doing it for feeding my family immediately and for commercial purposes, again, what are the challenges? Because those challenges are the past challenges, the now challenges, and also the next future generation that is going to come and that is going to come after us. And now also when you put things in context again, is that you then have to understand the person who have land and water. And then you also have to understand the person who doesn't have land and doesn't have water. You have to understand that farming can happen in a desert. Those are contexts that we need to understand. We also need to understand the concept of urban agriculture, for example. Once you start putting those things into perspective, then you can decide, okay, let's talk about innovation and let's talk about technology. Now, once you understand again that urban agriculture, for example, you might not have the sufficient land that you need to do what? To do your farming. Then what do? That's when you resort now to technology. If you understand that maybe you do not have land, you do not have water, you do not have access to a farm, you do not, like all these things that you ask yourself, then the next thing is that, so if I find myself in the desert area, how can I do farming? I think somebody spoke about in their presentation about, is the industry that he was talking about, the nursery, for example. It's something that you can do in town, even if whether you have land or you don't have land. So this is now where the concept comes to say, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to technology, is to do more with less. Whether you have access to land, access to water, or you don't have, you can still do farming. And also then it comes again to say, when we are talking about innovation and technology, at what stage are we going to go? Again, he brought in his presentation, I forgot his name, I didn't get it. He brought in his presentation to say either instead of having a fence off, you can use a dog. So it's all those concepts, contexts that we need to think about. But in actual fact, when it comes to technology and farming, is that it's one of the crucial things that we need to start now talking about, because farmers are facing quite a lot of challenges. And with technology and innovation, when we talk about that, it shouldn't just be in isolation. It should be to address the challenges that the farmers are facing on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, I'll give you a very, very practical example. I do not want to produce by all means and then still market, for example, or run around to look for a market, because that takes up my space for what? For production. So what I would want to do is to produce my banana. Somehow, somewhere, somebody must have an e-marketing thing. And all what needs to happen is this particular farmer has the product. How do we access them? Who is going to transport them? Like you follow the value chain that he was talking about. And that makes my life easier, because once I'm done producing, I go in the shade, I relax, I idolize my product, and the next thing is I have to go back where? To production. Now I'm the producer, I'm the transporter, I'm the seller, I'm the one. It's too much. But that is why technology really needs to come into place to make sure that it helps us farmers to make sure that it makes our life easier. Pest control, for example, the institutions, technology is not just at the farm, it also has to do with the institutions, whether the ones that are producing the pest control, the ones that are giving out funding, the ones that are, we had a discussion with someone just this morning to say, the last one, to say, for example, if you are giving out funding to a person who is in production, if you have technology that is in place to make sure that all the applications are processed immediately, you do not have to take 6 months to fund somebody when the funds are there and then when the person is already in production. It's not just at the farm. Technology is not just at the farm, but also within the institutions itself that are dealing with farmers.
Thank you for that. The one way you said technology helps farmers, I'll come back to you with another question on that. And that too, this one is for you, because earlier you spoke about some of the projects that you and your team are working on. And you also made a clarion call on all of us to make agriculture sexy and attractive. Now my question to you in that is that, do you see any unique opportunities or niches, also spoke of niches, within the agricultural sector that agripreneurs in Namibia should consider exploring?
Of course, I would say every problem within the food production is an opportunity for an entrepreneur, for a farmer to explore. So, but the most fundamental principle is always to encourage the farmers to venture into agripreneurship that have high yield of production. That have high returns, and the period of yield is very minimal. For example, if you are just starting and you just finished with your university and you want to venture into farming, I might advise you to either start with horticulture production first, then kettles. Because, for example, kettles are very capital intensive. The feeding of cattle is also very costly, and then the economic returns from cattle can take up to even maybe 4 to 5 years. And during that time, you could be demotivated because you need costs, you need other means of income to sustain yourself, to sustain the farm. So almost when we mentor or we do the capacity building for the farmer, we always love them to start with farming or with agripreneurship. That is firstly easier to make, where you are able to derive a lot of economic return, where the yield of production, the period of yield of production is also very limited. And by that man is starting starting small. And when you proceed, as you
try to expand your farm or your business, then you get more exposure. Then that is when you can venture into maybe large-scale production. And this is very necessary because before the Youth in Agriculture organization was set up, we have a record of about maybe more than 100 young people that ventured into farming and failed just within 6 months of production. And when we came in with these programs, it's actually helping because it enables them to prolong their stay within the agricultural sector, and we make them understand as time goes on.
For tomorrow's comprehensive weather forecast across the nation, let's now shift our focus to the weather report. Welcome to Sport Planet, your go-to slot for all sporting action. Leading the segment, the Madrid derby between Atletico and Real Madrid is the standout game in the 6th round of matches in La Liga this weekend. The Sunday night derby sees Real Madrid cross town on the back of 5 wins from 5 games and after Jude Bellingham scored a late goal to start their Champions League campaign with a victory. Dani Carvajal is Real Madrid's only injury worry apart from long-term absentees Thibaut Courtois and Eder Militao, while Atletico have a longer injury list with Rodrigo de Paul, Koke, Thomas Lemar and Reinildo all out, while Memphis Depay remains a doubt for Sunday. Atletico's start to the season was ruined by a poor 3-0 defeat in Valencia last weekend, and although they drew 1-1 away to Lazio on Tuesday, they will need to improve if they want to spoil Real Madrid's start to the campaign. On to another impending derby, but of an Italian nature. Inter Milan and Juventus are renewing an old Serie A title rivalry as Italy's two most widely supported clubs head into a busy week leading the way. Top of the league with a perfect 12 points, Inter are 2 points in front of second place Juventus ahead of their trip to pointless and goalless Empoli. Simone Inzaghi's side are riding high after smashing local rivals AC Milan on Saturday and snatching an undeserved point at Real Sociedad in Wednesday's Champions League opener. They are already early favourites to reclaim a league crown taken off Juve 2 years ago, which many fans believe should have been retained in 2022 when they took Milan to the final day of the season. Stay tuned for your sports roundup. This is where we dock out for tonight. Many thanks for tuning in. Do catch us for the Friday edition tomorrow. Otherwise, from myself, Salima Shumwefeleni Masipa, and our dedicated production crew behind the scenes, it's good night.